The room was quiet, save for the faint hum of a nearby air conditioner, and the only movement was the slow swing of a pendulum clock. Elon Musk had stepped out of the room for just a moment, and in his absence, a strange and unexpected conversation began to unfold. The young boy stood next to the grand desk where Donald Trump sat. There was an air of curiosity, not just from the child, but from the former president as well. What was going through Trump's mind as he looked at the child of one of the most influential tech moguls of the century? Was this just a passing moment, or was something more happening in this brief exchange? Trump had always prided himself on his ability to read people, to sense the energy in the room. But now, sitting across from Elon Musk's son, he was met with a gaze far different from what he had ever encountered in the world of politics or business. This was a child, yet there was something in the boy's eyes, an unmistakable depth, an unspoken understanding that made the former president pause. Could it be that this young boy was already processing the world around him in a way most adults would never grasp? Or was he simply a product of his extraordinary father's influence, unknowingly absorbing everything around him? Trump, accustomed to towering figures and ambitious leaders, found himself oddly drawn to the child's innocent yet confident demeanor. This wasn't the usual conversation about the future of America, where ideologies clashed and policies were debated. No, this was something different. The boy's presence seemed to elevate the moment, turning the conversation into something far more profound. As they began to talk, Trump couldn't help but feel a sense of inevitability in the air. This child, Elon Musk's son, was destined for something big, something far greater than anyone could predict. But what did that mean for the future of America? Was he the key to a new era, a new vision that could elevate the nation beyond the limits of its past? Or was he simply another, heir to a legacy, bound by the weight of the world's expectations? As the conversation shifted towards the boy's thoughts on technology, the future, and leadership, it became clear. There was something special about him. He spoke with an ease that seemed almost too mature for his age, as if he had been raised not just by one of the most brilliant minds of the generation, but by the very currents of history itself. How could a child so young already have such clarity about the future? Was this the mark of a new kind of leader, someone who would rise to the occasion and reshape the world as we know it? For Trump, it was both unsettling and exhilarating. He had seen many politicians, business leaders, and innovators, but this was different. The boy wasn't just another child of privilege. There was a certain confidence in his words, an assurance that seemed to speak volumes about the path ahead. Could this child who had barely reached double digits truly be the future of America? Or was he too just another cog in a machine that would eventually chew him up and spit him out, leaving only the legends behind? As the conversation deepened, Trump felt a spark of something that had been missing in his own career for years. Could this boy have the potential to take America to new heights, far beyond what anyone could imagine? Was he the future leader that could push the boundaries of innovation, technology, and power? But in that moment, something else lingered in the back of Trump's mind, something that made him uncomfortable yet intrigued. Could this young boy, with his childlike innocence and visionary thoughts, end up changing the world in a way that left even the great Donald Trump himself shocked? Would the child's secrets, his thoughts, his dreams, be the very things that would redefine not just the future of technology, but of politics itself? And as the boy spoke, Trump listened, his mind racing. What did the future truly hold? Could this young child, in all his simplicity, really be the key to unlocking America's next great leap forward? The tension in the room had shifted. What had begun as a casual conversation between two very different people, the former president and the young son of Elon Musk, had turned into something far more layered, far more profound. Trump found himself leaning forward, drawn in by the boy's quiet yet undeniable certainty. He could hardly fathom that someone so young could possess such a calm command over the future. Yet here was this child, speaking as though he had already seen the road ahead, a road that in Trump's mind was often filled with uncertainty and danger. As the boy continued to speak about technology, Trump found himself both impressed and perplexed. The child spoke with a clarity that was almost unnerving. He wasn't just recounting the latest advancements in the tech world. He was discussing them with the insight of someone who had already understood their profound impact. How could a child, so young, be this far ahead of the curve? Was it the product of his environment, the influence of Elon Musk's genius? Or was this simply the next step in a long line of emerging leaders, people who would break the mold and redefine what it meant to lead? Trump had always prided himself on being ahead of the curve in the world of business and politics, yet here he was, sitting in front of a child who seemed to know exactly where the world was headed. The boy was not just talking about artificial intelligence or electric cars. He was speaking of a new kind of power, a power that could shape not just markets but entire societies. It was a vision that made Trump's own political ambitions seem almost small in comparison. But then, what did this child see that others did not? Could his perspective be the one that finally made sense of the chaos the world seemed to be spiraling into? The boy's words took on a philosophical tone as he spoke of leadership. His thoughts weren't just about managing wealth or power, but about guiding a nation towards a greater future, a future built not on division, but on unity. It was a vision that, for a moment, made Trump question everything he had ever stood for. Was this the true essence of leadership? The ability to inspire others to dream of a future that was better than the one they knew? Or was the boy simply a pawn in a much larger game, one that would eventually turn him into something he could never control? As Trump listened, he couldn't shake the feeling that this child was speaking not just of his own future, but of a future for the entire country, a future that Trump, for all his bravado, could not fully grasp. It wasn't just about making America great again. It was about something more, something beyond the grasp of the present political landscape. Was the boy suggesting that America's greatness could be found not in its past, but in its ability to evolve and embrace new ideas? Could it be that this young boy was the one who would carry the torch forward long after Trump's own era had passed? For a moment, Trump was silent, lost in thought. The child's perspective, so clear and unwavering, seemed to challenge everything Trump had ever known. Could he, too, envision a future like the one the boy described? A future where America led not just in terms of power and wealth, but in the realm of innovation, sustainability, and progress. The boy, sensing the shift in the air, paused for a moment, his gaze meeting Trump's with an intensity that seemed to pierce through him. Trump, for the first time in a long while, felt a shiver run down his spine. It wasn't fear, exactly, but something much more complex, a sense of awe mixed with a dawning realization that the world he had known was changing, and fast. Could this child, this quiet, insightful young boy, truly be the one to lead America into a new era? Or was this just the beginning of something even bigger than any of them could anticipate? And then, just as quickly as the moment had passed, the conversation shifted once again. Elon Musk returned to the room, and the energy that had built between Trump and the boy suddenly felt like a secret, one that had yet to fully reveal itself. But the seed had been planted, and in that brief moment, both Trump and the child knew the future was no longer something to be feared. It was something to be embraced, and in the boy's eyes it looked brighter than anything Trump had ever imagined. As Elon Musk re-entered the room, the atmosphere felt subtly different. It was as though the conversation had not just been about technology or politics, but about a profound shift, one that Trump could not yet fully understand, but which seemed undeniable. The boy, having momentarily shared his vision with the former president, sat back with a quiet smile, almost as if the weight of the moment had already been understood. Musk, unaware of the undercurrent of change that had just passed between his son and Trump, resumed his position with his usual calm presence. But something had shifted in Trump's mind. As Musk began to speak, the former president couldn't help but find himself reflecting on the boy's words. The future the child had described, one of innovation, leadership, and unity, was a vision Trump had only ever glimpsed in fleeting moments of his political career. What was it about this child that made him so certain that this future was possible? How could someone so young, without the burden of experience or the weight of history, speak with such authority? Was it simply the gift of a brilliant father, or was it something more, something intrinsic in the boy's very being? Trump listened as Musk spoke, his mind racing between the present conversation and the private one he'd had with the boy just moments earlier. He couldn't shake the feeling that this child, Elon Musk's son, held the key to something much larger than he had first imagined. Perhaps the real question was not whether this child could lead, but whether America was ready to follow. Could a new kind of leadership truly rise from the ashes of old ideologies, or would the country remain trapped in its past, unwilling to embrace the change that was already beginning? The more Trump thought about it, the more unsettled he became. He had spent years building his brand, cultivating his influence, and positioning himself as the leader of a movement. Yet here, in this quiet room, a child was talking about something far greater than politics. The boy spoke of a world where technology wasn't just a tool, but a force for good, a world where society could evolve in ways that had once seemed impossible. How could a mere child with no experience in the trenches of politics or business have such clarity about what was needed? Was this the beginning of a new era, or was it simply a fleeting moment, one that would fade away as quickly as it had appeared? Trump's thoughts were interrupted as the boy looked up, his eyes meeting the former president's gaze once again. There was something unspoken in that look, something that made Trump pause. Could it be that this child, with his quiet confidence, was already aware of the deep responsibility that awaited him? And if so, how would he carry that weight? Could the child really navigate the complexities of leadership with the same ease that he navigated conversations about the future of technology? As the boy spoke again, this time about the possibilities of artificial intelligence and its potential to solve some of humanity's greatest challenges, Trump found himself listening intently. This wasn't just a conversation about the latest trends in technology. It was a conversation about the very nature of progress itself. The boy wasn't merely talking about advancements in science and engineering. He was speaking of a future where these innovations could be used to heal the planet, to bring people together, to create a society that was stronger and more resilient than ever before. It was a vision that seemed both grand and attainable, and it was one that made Trump question everything he had once believed about the limits of human potential. Could the future really be this bright? Was it possible for the world to change so radically, so quickly, or was it all just a pipe dream, a vision too idealistic to ever come to fruition? As the conversation wore on, Trump found himself drawn further into the boy's world, a world where anything seemed possible, where the boundaries of what could be achieved were limitless. Could this child, with his fresh perspective and boundless imagination, be the one to lead America into that world? And if so, what would that mean for the future of politics, for the future of the country itself? The more Trump thought about it, the more he realized that this wasn't just a conversation with a child. It was a glimpse into a future that was already unfolding, a future that would either embrace this vision of change or be left behind. And as the boy spoke, Trump could feel the weight of that realization settling in. Could this young, visionary child truly be the one to take the reins, to lead America into a new era of progress and unity? Or was this just the first step in a much larger journey, one that would challenge everything Trump had ever known? The room felt charged with something unspoken, something that had shifted in the few moments since Musk had returned. The conversation now wasn't merely about technology or politics. It had taken on a deeper, more philosophical tone. Trump sat back in his chair, his mind racing with questions that seemed to multiply with every passing moment. The boy's words, once simple and matter-of-fact, now seemed like glimpses into a future so far beyond anything Trump had experienced that it was almost impossible to wrap his mind around it. The child spoke with a level of conviction and foresight that left Trump feeling unsettled, as if he were witnessing the birth of something revolutionary, but unsure of where it might lead. Trump, ever the strategist, had always prided himself on his ability to see patterns, to predict the course of events before they happened. But here in front of him was a child who seemed to be seeing a different world altogether, a world in which the usual rules of politics, business, and power no longer applied. The boy spoke not just of the future of technology, but of a new kind of society, one where innovation wasn't something to be feared or controlled. but embraced as the key to solving humanity's greatest challenges. Could such a world even exist? Could America, with all its history of division and resistance to change, ever truly accept such a vision? Trump found himself caught between two opposing forces. On one hand, he was fascinated by the boy's clarity, by the possibility that this child could be the one to unlock the future of America. On the other hand, he couldn't help but wonder, was this just an illusion? Was the child simply a pawn in the hands of his powerful father, Elon Musk, whose own vision of the future was just as ambitious as it was unpredictable? Could a child, no matter how brilliant, truly understand the complexities of leadership? Or was he simply speaking the words of those who had raised him, echoing the ideas of a generation that had already begun to reshape the world? As the boy continued, now speaking about the importance of unity in the face of global challenges, Trump felt a stir of recognition. The boy's words were not so different from the rhetoric that Trump himself had once championed, ideas of strength, a resilience and greatness, but there was something fundamentally different in the way the boy framed those concepts. Where Trump had spoken of building walls, the boy spoke of breaking them down. Where Trump had focused on the power of the individual, the boy spoke of the strength that came from collective effort, from bringing people together to create a future that was not just great, but sustainable. It was a vision that resonated with Trump, even as it challenged his own beliefs. Could it be that the future of America was not in the hands of individuals like him, but in the hands of people like this boy, people who saw beyond the narrow confines of politics and business and understood that true greatness could only be achieved through collaboration, through innovation, and through the pursuit of a common goal? As the conversation progressed, Trump began to wonder whether his time had passed, whether the vision he had fought for, the vision of American greatness, built on individualism and strength, was truly the best path forward. Could the future really be about building bridges, not walls? Could it be about empowering others, rather than seeking power for oneself? And if that was the future, was there room for someone like him in it? The more the boy spoke, the more Trump realized that this conversation wasn't just a passing moment. It was a turning point. This child, who had seemed so unassuming at first, was not only challenging Trump's ideas about leadership, but also making him question his place in the world. Could this boy, with his vision of a new kind of America, truly be the one to lead the country into a future that was greater than anything Trump had imagined? Or was the world, with all its complexities and divisions, simply too entrenched in its ways to ever change? Trump couldn't deny that the boy's words had made him think, really think, about the future in a way he never had before. Could the child's vision of a united, innovative America become a reality? And if so, what role would Trump play in it? Was his time as a leader truly over, or was he simply at the beginning of a new chapter, one in which he would have to confront not just the future of America, but his own place in it? As the boy's voice continued to fill the room, Trump found himself grappling with these questions. Could he adapt to a world that seemed to be changing faster than he could keep up with? Or would he be left behind, a relic of a bygone era, as the world moved forward without him? The conversation between Trump and the young boy took a quieter turn. For a moment, everything seemed to pause. Trump, typically the center of attention in any room, found himself drawn into a reflective silence. The boy, whose earlier words had stirred something deep within him, now spoke more softly, more contemplative. It was as though he was planting seeds for a future that Trump, for all his experience, had never considered. Seeds that, once planted, would slowly begin to grow, reshaping the landscape in ways that were unimaginable just hours before. Trump, ever the pragmatist, began to ask himself, was this child, with his vision of unity and progress, truly ready for what lay ahead? Could he, at such a young age, navigate the complexities of the world stage? Could he balance the weight of leadership with the responsibility of shaping a nation's future? The boy spoke of the importance of humility in leadership, of listening to the voices of others, of embracing collaboration rather than division. In Trump's mind, this seemed almost naive. Wasn't it through strength, through power, that nations were built? Wasn't it through fierce determination and bold action that America had risen to the heights it had achieved? Yet, as the boy continued, Trump couldn't help but feel a growing sense of doubt. What if the world was changing in ways that he didn't fully understand? What if the very qualities that had made him successful, his bravado, his sharpness, his unapologetic confidence, were no longer what the country needed? Could the future of America be built on the ideals of unity and collective progress, or would it falter under the weight of too many compromises? The boy's words echoed in Trump's mind, challenging him to rethink everything he had known about leadership. It was as if this young child, who had grown up with the most forward-thinking mind in technology as his father, could see the world not through the lens of power and politics, but through the lens of possibility. For a moment, Trump felt something he hadn't in years: uncertainty. Could he accept this new vision of leadership, one that didn't rely on the past but instead looked forward to a future where collaboration and innovation were at the forefront? Or was this child simply the herald of a movement that Trump, for all his efforts, could never hope to lead? As the boy's voice grew quieter still, Trump found himself grappling with the deeper implications of their conversation. The future that the boy spoke of was not one of mere survival. It was a future of thriving, of taking what had been built in the past and using it to fuel something greater. But in order to achieve that future, would America need to leave behind some of the ideals that had made it great? Was greatness no longer defined by wealth or power, but by the ability to adapt, to innovate, and to heal the divides that had so often torn the country apart? Trump's mind churned as he thought of the political landscape. The old guard, the traditional power brokers, the voices of authority. Could they make way for a new era, one where the leaders of tomorrow, like this boy, could rise to the occasion and lead the world into uncharted territory? Or would the country remain tethered to the past, bound by old divisions and entrenched beliefs? The boy spoke of the importance of empathy, of seeing the world through the eyes of others and understanding their struggles. Trump had never considered himself an empathetic person. He had always been more focused on results, on getting things done, on winning. But as he listened to the boy, he began to wonder, could empathy be a strength? Could understanding the struggles of others actually be the key to true leadership? Could a leader who embraced the collective aspirations of the people, rather than focusing on their differences, truly change the course of history? As the boy paused, seemingly content with the impact of his words, Trump found himself lost in thought. The world as he had known it was changing in ways he hadn't anticipated. Could he change with it? Could he let go of the past in order to embrace the future? Could he learn from a child, someone so young, so untainted by the cynicism and compromises of the political world, and become a better version of himself? The boy's gaze met Trump's once again, and in that moment, Trump realized something he hadn't fully understood until now. The future was not something to be controlled or dictated. It was something to be shaped, molded by the visions of those who dared to dream. And whether or not Trump had a place in that future, the boy had already begun to carve his path. The question now wasn't whether the child could lead, it was whether the world was ready to follow.